Saul Bellow's fictional character, Augie March, has been likened to Huckleberry Finn. Away from innocence and towards knowledge. A young man who doesn't know what his real problem is, but who refuses to live a disappointed life. He's a new Huck, adrift in the city, the urban jungle, adaptive, adoptive, elusive, but determined to find a way to live in America. Augie March, out of Chicago, is a kind of Jewish Stud Lonigan. He is typical of the heroes throughout Bellow's novels. One way of examining his work is to analyze the progression of heroes from his first novel, The Dangling Man, to Herzog, his most recent. All his central characters resist and reject. Although their names may change, their ages increase from book to book. They are displaced and dispossessed, threatened and inadequate, escaping from the chaos of the world into themselves. In the words of Norman Podhoretz, editor of Commentary magazine,
Saul Bellow is probably regarded by most serious critics as the most important contemporary American novelist. And whether or not one would agree that he is the most important contemporary American novelist, there's very little question that he is among the 2 or 3 most significant serious writers in this country. The modern literary sensibility, which puts so much stress on the idea of alienation, had pretty well triumphed in the contemporary American consciousness by the end of the Second World War, and certainly by the 1950s. You weren't anything if you weren't alienated. And the Jews, as Delmore Schwartz and Isaac Rosenfeld, 2 younger Jewish writers who came up in the 1940s, the Jews had a great advantage from this perspective. They were doubly alienated. They were alienated as modern men and alienated, felt themselves to be alienated from American society. It's into this context that Bellow fits, I think, most significantly, because Bellow, from almost the beginning, has been attempting to find some alternative to the ethic and or what you might call the ethos of alienation. He has repudiated alienation as a style, as a heroic style. He began this process of repudiation in his first novel, and it continues all the way up through his other books and into Herzog. And what Bellow is advocating is what he takes to be a healthier relation to the world. A healthier, more robust, more vigorous, more vivid relation to the world. And this is what all his characters are looking for, never finding it very easy to discover, but this is what they're looking for. And his novels constitute a polemic, in effect, against the idea that there's no alternative to, well, really to the contemporary malaise and despair. He wants something more exuberant.
there is nothing to do but wait or dangle and grow more and more dispirited. It is perfectly clear to me that I am deteriorating, storing bitterness and spite, which eat like acid at my endowment of generosity and goodwill. The Dangling Man is Bellow's first novel, Joseph, the hero, is struggling to preserve his faith in humanity and to find the means by which to preserve himself. I have this six-sided box, and goodness is not achieved in a vacuum, but in the company of other men attended by love. I, in this room, separate, alienated, distrustful, find in my purpose not an open world, but a closed, hopeless jail. Some men seem to know exactly where their opportunities lie. They break prisons and cross whole Siberias to pursue them. One room holds me. Joseph is an ex-radical who has lost his faith in revolution. Throughout the book, his entries in a Kafkaesque diary chronicle a loss of control, continuing humiliations, a growing impotence, and a demand for recognition as a human being. Night comes, and I have to face another session of sleep. That sinister adventure, as Baudelaire calls it, and be brought to wakefulness by degrees through a nightmare of reckoning or inventory. My mind flapping like a rag on a clothesline in cold wind. Joseph has a way of talking to himself, passing judgment on his actions, his thoughts, analyzing his errors, his wrongs, his lies, his fear, his life. What is this for? What am I for? Am I made for this? My beliefs are inadequate. They do not guard me.
Well, I believe in that. I believe in that.
Oh, yeah.
Joseph continually fails to find freedom or dignity. His life becomes more and more empty as he falls away from society and its responsibilities. He begins to discover one weakness after another in all he had built up around himself.
I haven't got a selection of down to these people to leave me alone. I'm all over this in good customer. I have the album. Did you? Somewhere. I sold mine for $35. You did? What are you doing at the piano? What?
Where? I'm sorry. I've been coaching Richard.
Have you ever they laughed at you the first time you sat down there?
No, of course that I don't know.
Joseph's attempts to become a whole man are not resolved in Dangling Man.
Something obscure from Finian's Rainbow.
The book ends with his ironically greeting induction into the army. He will be in other hands now, no longer to be held accountable for himself, relieved of self-determination.
I just have.
You work? I'm a business person. It didn't work. I thought this had to be very good. This is true. Let me ask you something.
Right.
On some nights, New York is as hot as Bangkok. So begins Bellow's second novel, The Victim. The scene shifts from Chicago to New York. But like the Dangling Man, Asa Leventhal, the victim, is in quest of a code by which modern man can live. He is plagued by a profound question for responsibility. How responsible are we for other individuals? Asa, out of weakness, out of fear, out of guilt, and out of compassion, allows another man to intrude on his life. That man slowly victimizes Asa, who sinks into a state of indifference. The demands take on the proportion of a nightmare. Why me? He thought, frowning. Of course, he has to have someone to blame. That's how it starts. But when he goes over everybody he knows in that brain of his, how does he wind up with me? That was what was puzzling. Asa reasons that unfairness is acceptable in a general way. The world is made up of have and have-nots, those who enjoy more than their share of the comforts of life, those with less. But Asa is confronted with this general problem in a personal way. A man had picked on him, Asa Leventhal, as the man with whom to get even. How can he be held responsible for general wrongs? Man is weak and breakable, has to have just the right amounts of everything: water, air, food. Can't eat twigs and stones, has to keep from breaking. Asa keeps from breaking, but not from dangling. He remains a victim because he cannot make his peace with whomever it is that runs things. The idea of the victim, the man threatened by the external world, is a key to the character of all the Bellow heroes. I am an American, Chicago-born. Chicago, that somber city. And go at things as I have taught myself, freestyle, and will make the record in my own way. That record, made in his own way, freestyle, becomes The Adventures of Augie March, the third novel by Saul Bellow, wherein his hero tries to find the know-how with which to embrace the world.
Are there any standing around who would like to be remembered in our prayers, who would like to say to us, pray for me? And just by lifting your hand, say to us, pray for me. Yes, brother, thank you. Are there others? Thank you, brother. Yes. We invite you to pray with us now. We're going to ask you to bow your heads for a moment as we call upon God to be with us in these few moments on the street corner.
The Adventures of Augie March is a turning point in Bellow's novels. The hero is unquestionably in a real world, a world rediscovered by Bellow in its color, its sounds, its beauty, and its possible joy. Action more than reflection become important. Augie is in a world of people who are independent of what they do to or for him. Augie struggles hard for his identity. I have a feeling, he says, about the axial lines of life with respect to which you must be straight, or else your existence is mere clownery. They are truth, love, peace, bounty, usefulness, harmony. Augie's Chicago offers the potential for a new Bellow hero, but Augie remains a dangling man. He has dreams of self-realization, but he cannot make the commitment to people, places, or ideas that will make him part of any community. He goes where time and circumstance take him. For Bellow's heroes, there are perils everywhere. He pits each of them against terrible powers. None, however, is more ill-equipped to cope with these powers than the hero of Seize the Day, Tommy Wilhelm. The story is set in Manhattan's Upper West Side. The milieu is right for the tale of a man who sinks under the weight of fading youth and unredeemable mistakes. Wilhelm is the saddest of the dangling men. His search is the most desperate. His connection with reality is the weakest. He is rejected more than he rejects. He is even turned away by his father when he looks for him for help after his last calamity. Wilhelm is a man ripe for mistake. He even begins to think that the making of mistakes expresses the very purpose of his life. He is swindled out of the last of his money and the last of his self-respect by a zany but truth-speaking charlatan. He gives the man, Dr. Tamkin, the money and goes with him to Wall Street. Dr. Tamkin runs off with his money. Wilhelm, unable to change his life, had changed his name. Well, now, he thought, there's really very little that a man can change at will. He can't change his lungs or nerves, constitution or temperament. They're not under his control. Dr. Tamkin, the swindler, tries to give him a philosophy of life. The past is no good to us, he said. The future is full of anxiety. Only the present is real. The here and now. Seize the day, he said. My soul is like a pawn shop. I mean, it's filled with unredeemed pleasures, old clarinets and cameras, and moth-eaten fur. These are the words of Henderson the Rain King, who has been described as a monster of grief. Henderson has made more mistakes than Joseph, Asa, Augie, and Wilhelm put together. But, believing that man can start again, he goes on an adventure in search for his identity. There was a disturbance in my heart. A voice that spoke and said, I want, I want, I want. And I would ask, What do you want? But this was all it would ever tell me. It never said a thing except, I want, I want, I want. Henderson makes a journey into a real and unreal Africa. It is the Africa of the mind. His experiences with an African king and his lions teach him how to be. My purpose was to see essentials, only essentials, nothing but essential, and to guard against hallucination. Things are not what they seem anyway. He returns home to America, hopefully to put an end to his dangling through kindness and love. If I am out of my mind, it's all right with me, thought Moses Herzog. Some people thought he was cracked, and for a time, he himself had doubted that he was all there. He had fallen under a spell and was writing letters to everyone under the sun. He wrote endlessly, fanatically, to the newspapers, to people in public life, to friends and relatives, and at last to the dead, his own obscure dead, and finally, the famous dead. The search for truth is an unending search. For Herzog, who discovers the bankruptcy of an internal life, the search for truth uncovers only misery. In an endless round of self-examination and introspection, he concludes that he had been a bad husband twice. To his son and daughter, he was a loving but bad father. To his own parents, he had been an ungrateful child. To his country, an indifferent citizen. To his brothers and his sister, affectionate but remote. With his friends an egotist, with love lazy, with brightness dull, with power passive, with his own soul evasive. Thus does Herzog, in his intellectual adventure, chronicle the dangling states of Saul Bellow's characters. This comic man of the mind pursues the answers to the same questions as do the others. How does a man relate to society? How does he bring to an end the state of dangling? Break out of his real or symbolic sealed-off room to enter the world of action.
Bellow's heroes are dangling. They're dangling between two worlds of assumption. They're dangling between different historical epochs. They're dangling between different ideologies. They're dangling between one set of attitudes toward life and society and another. They never come to rest. So that Dangling Man is asking about life with a capital L, and how the individual is to live. How is a man to live? How is a man to live? Augie March is asking, how is an American to live in America? Henderson, the Rain King, is again asking, how is a man to live? Not in this or that particular society, but how is one? How is a man to order his life in the light of what Bellow has now come to think is the nature of existence? The weakest thing in every one of Bellow's novels is the attempted resolution. He is much better at asking questions than at answering them. He's not the only writer who's been better at asking questions than answering them. Well, Bellow likes to tell us, or would like us to think, that at the end of each book, or at least 4 out of the 5, the hero has come to a certain resolution and is no longer dangling. I myself, in each case, find this assertion on his part unconvincing. He does seem to feel a compulsion to suggest answers or to provide resolutions. These resolutions are almost never, I would say categorically, are never satisfactory. Perhaps the issues that he raises and deals with don't lend themselves to literary resolution. But in any case, the dangling state is what communicates itself most forcefully in Bellow's novels, and not the state of rest, which is sometimes suggested at the end of his books. This is true of the ending of Seize the Day, which I and many other people find unconvincing. It's true of the ending of Henderson, the Rain King, with Henderson running around joyously in Greenland on his way back from Africa to the United States. It's true of the ending of Herzog, which is rather difficult to understand. I mean, one doesn't quite know what Bellow is trying to say at the end of Herzog, though there's no question he's trying to suggest a resolution of Herzog's difficulties, or at least temporary resolution. As I say, these are all unconvincing to me, so that I would say that the state of doubt and of yearning, the state of questioning and of skeptical curiosity about everything, including one's own ideas. This is Bellow's meat. This is what he realizes best in fictional terms.
This is NET, the National Educational Television Network.